Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Now, do you remember a couple of months ago when the New York Department of Financial Services put out their proposal for what some people were calling a bit license? Others were calling it a cryptocurrency license. The actual term used in the proposal by the NYDFS was a regulation on virtual currency businesses. Well, apparently some entities have filed formal responses, one of those being Coinbase. And full disclosure, I do business with Coinbase, so I'm reporting on this as news, not as like here's stuff that I do. Here's something being done by a business that I do business with. So that's just throwing that out. Full disclosure, I do business with Coinbase. I have an affiliate agreement with Coinbase. But I do find this to be very newsworthy because Coinbase in the cryptocurrency world, especially in the libertarian sphere of the cryptocurrency world, Coinbase has gotten some flack because they have been seen as supportive of regulations. Well, this should give them a little bit of redemption among the libertarian sphere of the cryptocurrency world to where they're actually opposing the bit license. The full 15-page response from Coinbase to the DFS is available on their website. I've posted the link to basically their summary, and that's what I'm going to be reading here. So they summarize the main points as, quote, "We feel the bit license is duplicative of the current money transmitter regulations, which are a more appropriate form of regulation for the future of digital currency. Certain aspects of the proposed record-keeping and anti-money laundering requirements would eliminate the core utility of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, substantially hindering the innovation which all of us, including purportedly the NYDFS, find so promising." And the third point here, any regulation of virtual currencies at this stage should take care to exclude non-financial use cases and companies who are not storing Bitcoin on behalf of customers. Now, the regulations being proposed by the New York Department of Financial Services would include any business that accepts Bitcoin and has any customer in the state of New York. And they define that as, basically if you do business with anybody that is in the state of New York, then you fall under our jurisdiction for these purposes. And Coinbase here is saying that it should really not apply to businesses that just accept Bitcoin. And I agree. So let me continue by reading their summary here. It says, "While we applaud the NYDFS for being forward-thinking on virtual currencies, we feel the proposed bit license falls short of its stated goal of balancing customer protection and rooting out illegal activity while encouraging innovation. We remain cautiously optimistic that the NYDFS will work to reach a more appropriate balance that recognizes Bitcoin as a rapidly evolving technology." We dive into each point a bit more in detail. And point number one, the bit license would be redundant given current money transmitter regulations. They write, "A separate bit license would create unnecessary inefficiency and expense for both the NYDFS and licensees without reducing risk to consumers or risk of illegal activity. There is a surprising amount of overlap between the proposed bit license and the money transmitter license. The current money transmitter license system already has a great deal of overlap between each state, requiring companies to go through the same process up to 48 times. This includes fingerprinting, surety bonds, capital requirements, costly on-site examinations, and reporting obligations. Adding a bit license would further duplicate this effort. This is especially true for Bitcoin businesses that wish to engage in other forms of money transmitting, i.e., stored value. Furthermore, we at Coinbase believe that FinCEN put a clear and strong AML policy, or rather an AML policy stake in the ground with their Bitcoin guidance in March of last year, and then they link over to that. They continue, we believe it would be in the best interest of New York residents, the NYDFS, the law enforcement community, and the Bitcoin community if we were all working with a uniform set of obligations. We believe the department could broaden its interpretation of money to include virtual currencies and regulate virtual currency businesses under current money transmitter rules. Now, this is where, some people will say, well, okay, they're advocating for regulation, they're just not advocating for this regulation. And I can kind of see that, but on the one hand, if you try to only do business with groups or people that have the same exact principles as you do, then you're going to find it to be very difficult to interact with anyone in any meaningful way because, well, one of you had to drive on roads. Those roads are paid, in most cases, through force, through taxation. You don't really get a choice in who builds the roads and who pays for the roads. So, all right, you eliminate roads. You can't use the telephone network because, well, there's monopolies that are granted in certain cases to different carriers in different regions, especially if it's a landline carrier. Can't really use the internet unless you happen to live in one of these few places where there's actual competition in internet service, because in most cases, it's the cable company that will provide your high-speed internet. Cable companies only do business in a geographic area if they have government permission in the form of some kind of monopoly. So can't use that. What are you going to do? Carrier pigeons? You're going to communicate with people using carrier pigeons and grow all of your own food? And, of course, you have to live out in the middle of nowhere and not let anybody know that's where you live, because otherwise some government entity is going to say, you owe us property tax. And if you are, philosophically pure of, I'm not going to comply with anything, well, you're either going to have to keep moving every few years because government's going to steal your land, or you're going to wind up going to jail. And then you're in jail. That's paid through taxpayer dollars. That's funded by force. So, if you want to be philosophically pure, you can't survive in the world. So for the people that say, I'm never doing business with Coinbase because they did X, well, look at how they actually perform as a business before making that decision. Because they do something you don't like, then, again, you can't really be philosophically pure in who you do business with. Otherwise, you won't do business with anyone ever. The article here continues. It says, the bit license as proposed could eliminate the core utility of Bitcoin, an open payment network. Perhaps the greatest feature of Bitcoin, as well as other cryptocurrencies, is the fact that it is an open protocol that anyone can use. As such, it's possible for a wide range of individuals to develop and utilize different solutions, such as near instantaneous and free remittance, microtransactions, and other distributed ledger uses. There's more on this, as well as the other points from Coinbase and their response to the NYDFS. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Before I get back to the story here from Coinbase about their response to the New York Department of Financial Services, I want to make sure that I tell you about the FANS program. FANS are friends, allies, and Numeri supporters, and you can join the FANS program for as little as $3 per month using PayPal, or any amount of Bitcoin per month using the recurring payment options provided by Coinbase. And again, full disclosure, I do business with Coinbase. I advertise for Coinbase. But the reason that I'm covering the article that I am is because it is newsworthy, or at least I find it to be newsworthy, and I'm sure other people do as well. But the FANS program helps me sort of afford to be able to do more media. And I've got a few things in mind lined up to start doing, and your financial support is appreciated. And all people that join the FANS program get in their mailbox every month a free copy of the monthly newspaper that I publish, that I've been publishing for a couple of years, the FPP News. And you also know that your money is going to help offset cost. Right now, I've got a couple of fans who are donating money that essentially cover the web hosting for the website and the hosting for the archives. And there might be a couple of dollars left over after that. I don't keep super great books, but I know what my expenses are. I know what I bring in. And right now I'm pretty much, covering expenses. I'm not making a living doing this right here. But I do provide a great deal of media, all of it for free. So if you appreciate what I do and you want to help out by tossing a couple of bucks or a couple of Bitcoin Satoshis, if you will, because I'm not asking anybody to send a full Bitcoin per month. But any amount is appreciated. You can find out more or join the FANS program at fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com. So back to the article here from Coinbase. The second point that they make is that the bit license, as proposed, could eliminate the core utility of Bitcoin as an open payment network. They write, perhaps the greatest feature of Bitcoin, as well as other cryptocurrencies, is the fact that it is an open protocol that anyone can use. As such, it is possible for a wide range of individuals to develop and utilize different solutions, such as near instantaneous and free remittances, microtransactions, or other distributed ledger uses that are capable of worldwide interoperability, as long as they are based on the same open protocol. However, by requiring the collection of information not supported by the protocol, such as names, account numbers, and physical addresses of all parties to a transaction, the proposed rule would force licensees to operate closed, proprietary networks similar to Visa, MasterCard, or PayPal, effectively eliminating the utility of this feature and stifling innovation. And the third point that they make in the summary here is that regulations should apply only to companies holding customers' Bitcoin. They write, finally, the scope of activity captured by the definition of virtual currency business activity in the proposed regulation could include a host of non-financial services businesses. The distributed ledger at the core of many virtual currencies allows for inexpensive, reliable, and public record keeping, which can be utilized in myriad of innovative ways that are unrelated to money. these uses should not be governed by statutes established to regulate money transmission. And what they're talking about here of things that can be used for unrelated to money instances, because the blockchain, as long as the client is being run by someone somewhere, then things can be stored. I don't want to say permanently, but let's say perpetually. Things can be stored on the blockchain. And there is something that I'm really interested in finding out more about that should be launching here, I believe, in about a month, called BitNation, that they're planning to be the first non-geographic nation that is sort of voluntary, to where you go to bitnation.co, I believe is the website, and you can register a business on the blockchain. There's somebody that's registering a marriage on the blockchain, or they did register a marriage on the blockchain, meaning that somehow, they know the inner workings and they typed some message in and boom, there it is, and people can look for it and find it, and it's there as long as the Bitcoin client is being run. Their marriage will be on record in the Bitcoin client. That can never be wiped away unless the entire internet gets wiped away, but even then there's possible ways that it can survive, and we'll find out more about that in the second hour when Paige Peterson from MaidSafe comes on the show, because she knows about this thing, distributed internet something. I don't completely understand it. I've heard it explained a dozen times, and it still doesn't really make sense to me. But stay tuned, and we'll figure that out in hour number 2. But people are registering businesses like, this was created on this day, and boom, it's in the blockchain. And they're not sending money to anybody. Well, they're obviously sending a transaction fee to get the thing to register in the blockchain, but they're not, sending money to another person or to a business. They're just sending the miner's fee, which is required by the Bitcoin client. And that's not something that should wind up having to be, give every detail about the person. But if this thing winds up getting passed in New York, then maybe all of these other functionalities of Bitcoin would just disappear, because people don't want to have to deal with, name, date, social security number, this, that, the other thing. They'll just say, screw it, we'll go find something else. So they continue here. Coinbase continues. In addition, we feel that only companies who store Bitcoin on behalf of customers should be considered for regulation now or in the future. Coinbase is an example of such a company, and luckily has the resources to work diligently with regulators. But many Bitcoin companies do not store Bitcoin on behalf of their customers, or are startups incapable of bearing the cost at the current stage. And they conclude by saying, don't do this, it's bad, okay? Stay tuned. I've got poll results from Pew that are stunning. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Now, here's something shocking. Pew Research has found that Americans have an incredibly short memory. Well, that's not actually what they were asking the questions about, but I'll go ahead and give you a teaser here. They did a survey where one of the things that they asked about was whether or not people were scared of Islamic extremists in the United States. And another question that they asked was whether the federal government has gone too far in, quote, restricting average person's civil liberties, end quote, or that they have not gone far enough to adequately protect the country. Well, last year, remember last year? Do you remember what happened last summer? Well, if you don't, then allow me to give you a refresher. 2 words, Edward Snowden. Yes, it was last year when Edward Snowden released to the media a lot of documents. And I don't think that all of the documents have been released yet. I'm sure more is coming out. And one of the things that we learned about was the massive spying by the NSA. And in July of last year, when Pew Research asked this question, they found that 35% of those who were asked said that the federal government has not gone far enough to adequately protect the country, and 47% of those surveyed said that the federal government has gone too far in restricting the average person's civil liberties. Remember that number, 47%. That number now is 35%. And just on a brief tangent here, I don't like the way Pew Research offers this answer. The question was the bigger concern about government anti-terror policies, and then they gave the 2 options. And the way they offer this answer is they have not, or rather, they have gone too far in restricting the average person's civil liberties. Now, that makes it sound as though liberties are something that are to be restricted. That, restrictions. There's supposed to be restrictions on stuff. They've not gone far enough in restricting it. Now, what I would have preferred the answer to be is, have they gone too far in limiting civil liberties? To where you make it sound as though they have gone, they've actually taken an action that is an action they should not take. Has the federal government gone too far in violating the civil liberties of the average person? Now, I don't know what the difference in results would be for this survey, but I've seen surveys done to where they ask the same question 5 different ways, and depending on how they ask the question and the way that they phrase the possible responses, then it does show a difference. There was an article in a copy of Reason magazine that I got in the mail recently that I am not really sure where it came from. It said complimentary copy, and so thank you to whoever decided to send me that copy of Reason magazine. And one of the things that they had in there was a question where they asked people that are deemed to be millennials whether or not they thought that the government should do certain social programs. And then they asked the question again, and they referenced paying for it with your taxes. And once they made people aware that these social programs were being paid for with their money, there was a shift in the number of people that decided, wait, no, we shouldn't do that. So I know that the wording can affect the outcome. So I don't know if Pew is doing this intentionally to try to, get it to seem like, well, there's only a third of the people in the country that think that the government's gone too far. And I'm not really sure about that. But now, remember, in July, it was 35% that thought that the government had gone too far. Or, that they had gone too far. Or not far enough, rather. I'm sorry, I'm misreading this. 35% last summer thought the government had not gone far enough to adequately protect the country from supposed terrorists. And they never defined the word terrorist. But now, September of 2014, half of those surveyed, 50%, think that the government has not gone far enough to adequately protect the country from supposed terrorists. And only 35%, roughly one-third, believe that the government has gone too far in restricting the average person's civil liberties. And the main purpose of this survey from Pew was to ask about Muslim extremist or Islamic extremist in the homeland. And I think that they timed it because of the new war with ISIS. And can we stop on calling them ISIS, please? And I ask that because there's confusion about what does ISIS stand for, like what does the actual acronym stand for. Other people are saying that, like this is obviously some government creation because they gave it the same name as this Egyptian god of something or another. But the people that make up this group of ISIS, they prefer to call themselves the Islamic State. That's what they're calling the land that they're conquering. They are calling it the Islamic State. They are saying that it is a new caliphate. So they're not even calling themselves ISIS. There may be a possibility that some of them are calling themselves ISIL, meaning the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant. And the Levant apparently is an Arabic word meaning like all of the Muslim areas. But again, like they're not calling themselves ISIS, but Barack Obama wants to go blow up people that he deems to be ISIS, even though it was about a year ago when Barack Obama was having the CIA secretly send weapons to the people that now are in ISIS because, well, they're the Syrian rebels and they're fighting Muhammad Assad. And, well, wait a second. So now we're fighting the people that we gave weapons to a year ago because the enemy of my enemy is now my enemy? I don't completely understand it, but Barack Obama and a lot of people in the Pentagon have a hard-on to go kill some brown people. And Sarah Palin, remember Sarah Palin, the crazy wacko from Alaska that became the GOP's vice presidential nominee in 2008? She's saying that, well, we should go in there, kill people in ISIS, and then leave. But ISIS only exists because we left Iraq too early. Well, wait a second. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth there, Sarah. You're saying that ISIS exists because the U.S. military left Iraq too early, but you want to go bomb ISIS and then leave right away because somehow staying would cause ISIS to exist. It doesn't make any sense. But again, it's politics, and I don't think it's supposed to make any sense. But again, remember, it was last summer that Edward Snowden leaked that PRISM existed. PRISM being one of the spying things done by the NSA. And, well, there's new information about PRISM. Yahoo tried to fight it. And they were told, if you don't comply, you have to give us $250,000 per day. There's more on the Yahoo story when we come back. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. Now, earlier in the show, I told you a way that you can directly support this show and other media stuff that I create. Well, now I want to tell you one way that you can indirectly support the show and the other media that I create, and that is by shopping online. Well, yeah, I know what you're thinking. Well, how does shopping online help you? Well, you start off by going to shop.fppradio.com before you go to Amazon to do your shopping over there, if you use Amazon. Or if you need Bitcoin, then I've got two options for you on how you can do that. You can get the full service at Coinbase that I have an affiliate link with. Or if you already have a wallet and you just want to buy some Bitcoin and you don't want to connect a bank account or do anything else, then you can use ExpressCoin. I've got an affiliate agreement with ExpressCoin. There's a link there from shop.fppradio.com. There's also affiliate links with Amagi Metals, so if you need gold or silver, and yes, you can use Bitcoin to purchase gold and silver from Amagi Metals, and there's much more there at shop.fppradio.com. And any purchase that you make from any of my affiliate links winds up helping me indirectly, so that you do the shopping you were already going to do. You just make a couple of extra clicks before you do it, and then they send me money for sending you to them, and you sending them money. So indirectly, you can support the show. Shop.fppradio.com. So the Prism thing, that's kind of a weird, strange thing. I'm still not sure what the acronym PRISM stands for, but I know it's an acronym, and I know that it was an NSA program, or it might still be an NSA program. We don't really know if it's still going on. But Edward Snowden is the one that brought this to the attention of the American peoples last year. And remember a lot of people giving Yahoo a hard time because Yahoo complied with the NSA's data collection, and Google and Facebook and a bunch of these other companies, they're complying. And, well, it turns out that Yahoo tried to fight them. We just now found out that Yahoo tried to fight the feds back in 2008. So, almost 7 years ago? It was started in late 2007. They wound up going to court in 2008. And now, just over 6 years after they were in court, the last time that we know of with the NSA thing, we find out they tried to fight it. The feds threatened them with $250,000 per day of fines if they did not comply. So the article here from Wired, and obviously I'm not going to read the entire thing because it's fairly lengthy and I don't have time in this final segment, but I do have a link on the Facebook and the Twitter. Facebook being facebook.com/peacelovelibertyradio or facebook.com/FPP radio. They're actually fpp.cc, the one for FPP radio. Just you can find it. Facebook.com/peacelovelibertyradio is the best one to go to there. Or Twitter, just it's my personal Twitter. It's at Darryl W. Perry, DarrylWPerry. So Yahoo had fought to unseal the case documents to provide better transparency about the government's data collection programs and the FISA court's controversial history in approving nearly every request the government makes. The company, that being Yahoo, disputed the initial order in 2007 because it deemed the bulk demand for email metadata to be unconstitutionally broad, but it lost that fight in both the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and during the appeal to the Foreign Intelligence Court of Review. It was among the first of 9 internet companies to fall to the government's demand for customer data and was a crucial win for the feds since they were allowed to wield the ruling as part of their demand to other companies to comply. Each of the internet companies fell in line with the program at separate times in the wake of the ruling. Yahoo General Counsel Ron Bell wrote in a post published after the unsealing, quote, "The released documents underscore how we had to fight every step of the way to challenge the U.S. government surveillance efforts. At one point, the U.S. government threatened to impose $250,000 of fines per day if we refused to comply. The unsealing of FISA court documents is extremely rare," Bell noted, But it was an important win for transparency, and we hope that these records help promote informed discussion about the relationship between privacy, due process, and intelligence gathering. The documents, 1,500 pages worth of documents, were posted online on Thursday by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. And Bell noted that despite the declassification and release, portions of the documents remain sealed and classified, unknown even to our team. The ACLU praised Yahoo for pushing back on the government's unreasonable surveillance. Patrick Toomey, staff attorney with the ACLU, and I am fairly certain this is not the same Pat Toomey that used to be a senator from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, said in a statement, Pat Toomey, staff attorney with the ACLU, said in a statement, Yahoo should be lauded for standing up to sweeping government demands for its customers' private data. But the documents released only underscore the need for basic structural reforms to bring transparency to the NSA's surveillance activities. Yahoo's secret battle and the PRISM program came to light only after last year's document release by NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden exposed the data collection program. Yahoo, Google, Apple, and other companies were harshly criticized for complying with the program and seemingly putting up no resistance. But shortly after the program was exposed, Yahoo's dogged battle with the feds to resist its inclusion in the program came to light, only after another document leaked by Snowden exposed the company's legal fight against the FISA court system. So let me skip down here to the actual meat of what happened here. So in late 2007, the federal government demanded that Yahoo give up some documents, and they went through the FISA court and said, FISA court signed off, you have to give us stuff. Well, Yahoo appealed the decision and requested a stay in the data collection pending the appeal, but the FISA court refused the stay, and beginning in March 2008, Yahoo was forced to comply with the request for data in the meantime under threat of civil contempt, meaning if you don't do it, we will fine you money at the tune of $1 million every 4 days. 5 months later, in August of 2008, the FISA Court of Review found that the data request undertaken for national security reasons qualified for an exception to the warrant requirement under the Fourth Amendment and upheld the original court's order to comply. So you see what happens here. The federal government goes to their secret court and says, we want documents from Yahoo. The government then goes to Yahoo and says, we've got this document here from our secret court saying that you have to give us stuff. And who does Yahoo get to appeal this decision to? Well, to the same secret court that gave the document to the government saying Yahoo has to give us stuff. And so after that court decided, nope, we didn't do anything wrong, we made the right decision, then the company, in this case Yahoo, gets to appeal to the FISA Court of Review, meaning an even more secret court that all they do is review things that the FISA court has done. So what do you think the FISA Court of Review is going to say? Of course they're going to say, nope, you've got to comply. So the article here continues and concludes. It says, as for Yahoo's concern that the request was too broad and opened the possibility for abuse, the judge wrote that the company had presented no evidence of any harm. You didn't show us that it harmed you, so therefore you have to comply. We can do whatever we want. You lose. Give us information. Stay tuned. We'll find out how you can maybe not ever have to give them information again when Paige Peterson is on the show next hour. Hi, I'm Darryl W. Perry, and I need your help to take Peace, Love, Liberty Radio on the road. In the spirit of Motorhome Diaries and Liberty on Tour, I intend to take the message of peace, love, and liberty on the road. I intend to leave New Hampshire at the conclusion of the New Hampshire Liberty Forum and return at the beginning of PorcFest. During the 104-day trip, I'll be visiting at least 10 cities across the country, speaking to people about the ideas of peace, love, and liberty, while continuing to produce daily Liberty media. Pensacola, Florida, Austin, Texas, Sedona, Arizona, and Denver, Colorado are already on the map. If you have a college group, a local Liberty on the Rocks, or other Liberty meetup that you'd like me to visit, you can possibly add your event to my calendar. To find out more about the tour or to donate, visit tour.fppradio.com. That's tour.fppradio.com. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. My guest this hour, and yes, this is hour number 2. That means interview hour. My guest this hour is Paige Peterson. Paige works with MaidSafe, which is some kind of thing that is supposed to be able to, like, distribute the internet in some kind of way, and she's going to try to help us make sense of this. Paige, welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Thanks for having me on, Darryl.
So, just real quick, introduce yourself, because I know that I didn't do as great a job introducing you as what I could have.
So I am currently working for MaidSafe. I've been working for them for about 6 months or so, and I am their kind of U.S. representative of sorts. They're all based in Scotland, so and they're really kind of in the zone right now, getting ready for launch. So a lot of the conferences and stuff they can't go to, so I'm kind of taking care of that. And then additionally helping to kind of create a developer community in San Francisco, because that's where I'm based. As it is a new internet protocol, it needs developers to make applications. So we're trying to kind of spearhead a community out here for that.
Okay, so you're creating a new kind of internet, and that's really the thing that I don't really understand how the internet that I have now works. I know that I push buttons, and then, Twitter or the DNS doesn't read twitter.com. It reads, 10 something, and then interprets that to be 78 dot something dot whatever, and then the computers know, oh yeah, Darryl wants to go to Twitter. And so, it's all on binary and DNS and all these technologies that I don't completely understand, and there's a bunch of servers around the country, and somehow my internet knows to connect to the one that's closest and something. But I push buttons and things show up on my screen. That's really what the average person, that's what they know. Like, I push buttons, things show up on my screen. So how is this new internet going to be different, if you will? Obviously, like on some sort of distributed network, is there going to be a bill every month? Am I going to have to pay somebody every month to use this other internet?
It depends. If you're actually providing resources to the network itself, then you shouldn't really be paying anything, as long as you're not, the more you use the network. So say you use a lot of, you would be uploading potentially a lot of audio and video files that could be kind of above average, like the average user for the network. So
okay, there's
potential for you to be to use the SafeCoin token for accessing more of the network than the average user, but the whole threshold of what's going to be kind of the average is still kind of being tested right now, so it's really not too sure.
Okay, so SafeCoin, tell us about that, because I know that the whole MaidSafe thing is built off of this SafeCoin platform, and SafeCoin, as far as I understand it, is one of these what they call altcoins, to where it kind of uses the Bitcoin sort of thing, but there's tweaks to it so that it's different and it's not Bitcoin. So this is SafeCoin, and the purpose is to sort of be the official currency of MaidSafe?
So actually, the protocol itself is not really based on the token. The token itself is for creating incentive for users to provide resources. So say you have a desktop at home and you don't use all of it, or you want to be able to access the network for a cheaper amount than you would normally if you don't provide any resources, then you can just allocate a portion of your hard drive, and the network will use that to save files and do computing for that other people on the network are trying to do. So actually, SafeCoin is almost it's almost like the last step to driving the network. I think what really is interesting is the whole fixing of the internet. So maybe I can just kind of go over how the internet is, how it's structured, because you touched on it a little bit, but it's really based on a client server structure. So when you say you upload some files to Dropbox or SoundCloud.
Yep, SoundCloud, I'll do that at the end of this show.
Exactly. It'll get saved to their servers. There's not much distributing going on in terms of, they might make a couple copies or something, but in the end, you're still being dependent on these servers, which are essentially computers in a different location that other people control. You're not dependent on those when you use the MaidSafe protocol kind of as a way to split up the files and split up the computing, so that you're using a network of computers rather than just relying on one central server to access a website or,
So it sounds, and I'm trying to dumb it down here for, people that might not know all of the technical stuff, and also so that I can try to understand it. It sounds as though it's like an internet that would be run off of a torrent sort of thing.
So it's based on a DHT, distributed hash table. It's a very similar technology. It's kind of an iteration on that, but it's kind of has a bunch of different properties of things that were created and then kind of tweaked and made a little better. But in essence, correct, it's a way to completely decentralize and distribute files and computing. So instead of uploading something to a server, you upload a file on the MaidSafe network, and it gets chopped up into chunks, encrypted chunks, and spread out to individuals' computers, and even people that have maybe they have servers and they want to allocate resources to it. It's the end point is that you're not completely dependent on any one server. So I guess to kind of relate it to the Yahoo story you were just talking about.
Yes.
They have servers that they're in control of. And that's the reason why the government can be give us this information, because they have these computers that they only have access to and whatnot. But if you use something like a MaidSafe network, all the files are distributed out to, hopefully millions and billions of computers.
And there's one word, I just want to interrupt you real quick. There's one word that you said that really, it touched something off in my brain that is totally different than the regular internet. You said encrypted. So I send a file to, MaidSafe or whatever, whenever this launches, and I'm somehow configure my internet to go to the MaidSafe net, and I upload a file, it's encrypted. And that is something that, you can do on the regular internet kind of to some extent, but it takes work, and it's not necessarily as easy to do as what most people would like it to be.
Right.
Because, encryption, the whole point of it not being easy is because if it's easy to do, it's easy to hack, and I want to find out more about how MaidSafe is going to be encrypted, and we will find that out when we come back in just a moment on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. And you can tweet your question. You're listening, tweet your questions, hashtag Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fbpradio.com. My guest is Paige Peterson from MaidSafe. And you started talking about encryption. You had mentioned that the MaidSafe network, once it winds up kicking off, it's still in the developmental stages right now. But once it kicks off, it will be sort of an alternative internet that is encrypted. Right now, when I send an email or something else over the internet, it isn't encrypted. I know I should use a VPN, and I've got an account with the VPN, but with the operating system that I'm currently using, there's problems with VPNs actually working. So what I'm doing right now, I'm not encrypted. I would love for, everything that I do to wind up being encrypted, and then the other end, they're just like, oh, okay, here it is, and it's in normal language that they can understand. And I understand the reasons that, encryption aren't easy to do, because as I said in the last segment, if it's easy to do, it's easy to hack. And then, what's the point of having a hackable encryption? But MaidSafe is going to be encrypted, so I can upload files or documents or whatever, and it's encrypted. And tell me how that's going to work.
So there's actually a couple of layers of encryption. So, but essentially, each chunk that you upload to that, each chunk of a file that gets uploaded through the network will be encrypted in its own. So the file will it's called self-encryption, and it gets a little technical if I were to go into it. But the essence is that the file is encrypting itself via the chunks and the hashes of the other chunks in the file.
Okay.
It is a little bit like extra encryption. It uses kind of normal standard encryption as well, but there is this extra layer that kind of determines that verifies that each chunk in itself has this extra layer of encryption, that even if you were to be able to hack into someone's computer and get these chunks and even get all the chunks together, that they wouldn't really be able to unlock and expose themselves. And even if you were able to unencrypt an actual chunk, it would only be a chunk, and it wouldn't give you any other information about the rest of the file. So I think the combination of the chunking of files and computation and then encryption is what makes it really strong. So you can't really talk about one without the other, because, for example, you can still upload an encrypted file to Dropbox, for example. However, you're still depending on their servers to not fail or, get burned down or whatever. It's still the central point, and the combination of the chunking and the encryption is what makes the network really strong.
And the distributed part, Because instead of, like a central server, here's the MaidSafe server in independent Scotland. I say independent Scotland because I'm hoping that on Thursday the people of Scotland wind up voting to secede. I'm not really sure, where you stand on this or where the developers of MaidSafe
stand with them.
What's that?
I totally stand with the yes side.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you've heard, and not to sort of get off on a tangent here, but I'm not sure if you've heard where the British government has been trying to make all of these concessions of, if you vote no, then we'll give you more autonomy, even though we refuse to allow you to put more autonomy on the ballot here. But please don't go. So I'm not sure where the developers of MaidSafe stand, but, I would love to see as many independent nations as there are people, but that's just me. But anyway, instead of one central server somewhere, everybody running the client, or people can allocate hard drive space to help run the network.
Correct.
So that seems to be something that's what I don't really understand I don't really understand the way torrents work either, but I know that it's kind of the same, like you've got a bunch of people running this file at the same time. But I don't understand you've got a bunch of people running the internet on a separate network at the same time. That seems too large for me to comprehend.
The concept is extremely complex, actually, how the network runs. And similarly, to kind of touch on SafeCoin, SafeCoin is not based on blockchain technology whatsoever. SafeCoin runs on the Safe network once it's launched, obviously. But the idea is, these individual computers, or even, servers that are remote, are providing resources so that people can save their chunks to their hard drive space, and it makes it completely anonymous and completely distributed in that essence. So you're basically providing this proof of resource so that the network can kind of measure how much benefit you're giving to the network. So say you have a 2 terabyte hard drive that you're not using or something, or you want to buy one just for this, you can set it up with a small computer or an older computer that is constantly connected to the internet, and kind of let that run, similar to how there's Bitcoin mining.
Right.
It's a similar concept in that you're providing proof of doing something in order to get these tokens. However, the proof of resource is obviously to drive this distributed internet, whereas proof of work is just computation that's not really doing much benefit.
So it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong here, and apologies on misstating earlier that SafeCoin was, somehow a derivative of the Bitcoin blockchain. But on the thing to where people can allocate portions of their hard drive, it seems as though that's more a proof of stake instead of a proof of work sort of distribution.
It's more, you're still doing work. So the proof of resource actually considers how much storage you're providing, how much CPU you have, so that you can run bits of code or whatever you need to process some computations for other people using the network. And 3, how fast your bandwidth is / if you are on and offline. So if your computer is
hold your thought, Paige. We're at the end of the segment. We'll come back and finish explaining the proof of resource for SafeCoin and the MaidSafe network when we come back. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. online at fppradio.com. We'll get back to Paige in just a moment. But first, I want to make sure that I tell you about Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. For over 35 years, since 1977 to be exact, which would mean nearly 37 years, Roberts and Roberts has been a trusted source for buying and selling your investment-grade precious metals. They don't support the banks, but they do take Bitcoin so that you can turn some of your profits into a long-term, stable investment. Call Roberts and Roberts Brokerage for knowledgeable advice on investing. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760. Paige Peterson from MaidSafe is my guest. And, Paige, you were starting to tell us, I think you got through two of the steps about the proof of resource, which is the way that the MaidSafe network is going to run and then allocate the SafeCoin tokens to people that allocate hard drive space for the network to exist. And there's a formula, the amount of space that is being allocated, the reliability of the connection, the speed of the connection. So obviously somebody that lives somewhere with the T1 internet connection is going to have a much greater speed than someone that's still on dial-up. So what was the other part of the proof of resource that you were telling us about?
So those are actually the three components: the storage space, the CPU, and then the bandwidth, speed, or how if you go on and offline a lot. So, however, the allocation of the SafeCoin is a lot more granular than it is with Bitcoin. Bitcoin kind of creates incentive for a lot of people to come together and put all their proof of work together into these pools so that everyone can kind of get a piece. However, the MaidSafe network is much more granular in how it distributes the SafeCoin. So you're not going to be necessarily punished if you say you have a laptop and you're providing a small percentage of your laptop space to the network, and say you shut your computer down once in a while, you need to restart it or whatnot. That's not going to have a huge effect. And the idea is to make the network as distributed as possible. So therefore, making the SafeCoin allocation as distributed as possible and as granular as possible is the goal. However, if you are providing some sort of resource where you can keep your computer online all the time, that's going to kind of bump your vaults up. The vaults are kind of the each user's how much they're allocating to the network. So if you have a vault that you set up on your computer, and it's on constantly, it's very reliable, people can continuously access the chunks that they need to access from your computer, then your vault is going to be ranked higher in the network to store other people's chunks, therefore kind of creating this effect where the healthier of a vault you have, the more SafeCoin you're going to get. And it's just kind of promoting this keeping consistent with the network. However, people will still be able to kind of earn SafeCoin even on simple laptops. And I'm not quite sure about like mobile phones quite yet, but that's definitely a possibility in the future.
Oh, I didn't even think about mobile phones. That is incredibly interesting. But one thing that you run into with mobile phones is a lot of the contracts, they throttle your connectivity after you reach a certain number of gigabytes per month. So,
right.
It would be interesting to, be like, yeah, I'm running an alternate internet on my chromed robot turd in my hand here.
Yeah. I mean, ideally it would be as distributed as possible, so you could run it on, any kind of operating system or whatnot. It's just, it would definitely help situations where, in lesser income areas, actually tablets are really popular devices to have because they're cheaper than smartphones. But they still, they have a kind of a big screen and they're still very usable. So in those situations, they would benefit a lot. So say they had a fairly reliable connectivity, they would still be able to earn SafeCoin in some regard. But again, I'm pretty sure that the mobile is going to have to come a little bit later, focusing definitely on like computers, CPU, and basic.
And
PC.
I'm looking on the MaidSafe website right now, which is MaidSafe.net, and there's something called SafePods.
Right.
Can you tell us about these SafePods?
So that's actually one of the, what I'm doing out here in San Francisco, creating a developer community. That is, in essence, what the SafePods are trying to be, or what we want them to be modeled after. So they're going to be run by individuals that want to set them up and have the initiative to kind of create developer communities so that people can come together. Obviously, these things are going to work best in cities and denser populations where there's a good amount of developers that have interest in this. But in the end, it's basically just trying to provide these kind of hubs where the core development can be distributed out while also supporting developers that just want to make apps that use the network. So, for example, you said, once the network is live, like in terms of reconfiguring to be able to access the network. But if there's if someone makes, a Firefox plugin that you just install that accesses the MaidSafe network instead of needing to necessarily download a whole new browser or whatnot. I assume there's going to be browsers as well, but it's really just focusing on building the infrastructure and focusing on kind of incentivizing developers to help with the core and make applications.
Okay, so now my brain is going here. Not that I know how to develop things, but I can definitely come up with ideas. So if any of your development team is listening, make sure that the newest versions of Ubuntu are compatible with whatever you wind up coming up with, because
as far as I know, they've already made Ubuntu compatible. That's what a lot of the developers use. So yeah,
good, because the Tor network, I can't get on Tor. I'm using the newest version of Ubuntu, and I cannot get on Tor because there's something wrong with Tor that it is not compatible with the newest version of Ubuntu. My VPN isn't compatible with the newest version of Ubuntu, and OpenVPN, which is the thing that virtual private networks wind up running on, that's not compatible with the newest version of Ubuntu. So, a lot of the things that I would love to be able to do, I can't because, somebody somewhere that was making some development didn't pay attention that, hey, this new version of Ubuntu isn't backwards compatible with all of these other things. So if there could somehow be like a Chromium plugin, I would love that, because I've got the Dark Wallet. I can do Dark Wallet. That's one of the few things that I want to be able to do that I can actually do on my laptop here using the new version of Ubuntu. And I'm not bashing Ubuntu. I love Linux. I don't like Windows. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. My guest is Paige Peterson. She is with MaidSafe, and MaidSafe is going to wind up once it launches, and it's something that I'm looking forward to. It will be a distributed, sort of a secondary internet. Brian Sovereign, who's one of the co-hosts of Free Talk Live, he also hosts his own tech show, Sovereign Tech. He posted on Twitter that SafeCoin and MaidSafe should be called the Rebel Alliance. So, Paige, does that sort of make you one of the leaders of the Rebel Alliance?
I don't think I would like to consider myself in a kind of aggressive standpoint as that, but I guess it's definitely going to disrupt a lot of the current internet infrastructure. And yeah.
Well, one thing that I've heard Ernest Hancock from Freedom's Phoenix talk about is mesh networks. And I don't know, I still don't understand if a mesh network can then connect to the regular internet. Would somebody running a mesh network be able to connect to the MaidSafe network?
So mesh networks are really interesting. That's kind of another thing that I really like to think about and partake in projects doing things along those lines. Mesh networking can provide a lot of benefit, especially for the situations where, those people I was talking about that might not have enough money for, full-on PCs, and, they might have a tablet or two and they can't even afford internet access. Mesh networking is something that can help provide more widespread internet access to people that don't have it right now. So there's kind of two different ways you can see mesh networks, but essentially mesh networks can exist on their own, or they can kind of be this network that connects to the greater internet, and it can go either way. However, in reference to the MaidSafe network, there could be networks within mesh networks. So say you had a closed mesh network with enough nodes that could sustain and secure the MaidSafe network, you would totally be able to have your own network running. So say like the government in Egypt turn off the internet there, everyone else would be fine. All of the network itself, the greater global MaidSafe network, would kind of reconfigure itself to restore the chunks in different places and find the lost chunks and all of this stuff. However, the people in Egypt could feasibly still run their own MaidSafe network independently as well. So it is very kind of, it's self-healing, and it kind of is very natural in how it is able to kind of just stay alive and propagate.
And I'm not sure if you've heard about this thing called Alternet. I heard about this a couple nights ago, to where basically there's selected portions of the internet that are being beamed through satellite, and people with dishes can get it. And of course you can't upload because, that beam only goes one way. But it does sort of give the capability of information being able to be spread out over a wider area. So I don't know if, there would be some kind of way that somebody could wind up doing outer net of the MaidSafe network. I'm one of those people, if you can dream it, it's possible and it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
I agree. I think there's a lot of potential for MaidSafe nodes to be in space and to be kind of more remote, so that they can provide this extra backup as well.
And you wanted to discuss some of the differences between SafeCoin and Bitcoin and some of the other sort of altcoins, if you will. And I don't use the term altcoin to be derogatory. I just can't really think of a better term to think of to describe, like 400 and some odd virtual currencies other than saying virtual currencies. But SafeCoin is going to be different. So, all of the different virtual currencies, they all have something different. That's why they're different. But just tell us more about the SafeCoin and exactly how it's going to be different.
Sure. So because it's not based on blockchain technology, like I'm pretty sure every other cryptocurrency that has been created since Bitcoin is. However, it's based on the network. So the network is not a blockchain network at all. And the way that you can look at it is more like digital cash. So there isn't really this global ledger that every person can kind of verify. The network itself is verifying the transactions. So in this way, you can you aren't able to potentially verify my ownership of whether I already spent a safe coin or whatnot. However, there is this kind of way that the network handles it. So each token is actually only going to have the signature of the current owner and the previous owner. So as soon as the current owner sends it to the new person, the previous owner gets kind of scrubbed off, and there's no data left behind. So it's actually
it sounds to me kind of like one of these chain letters that I don't know if you ever got the chain letters back when you were a kid, but you would get a letter in the mail and it was like, remove the person that's number 1, make person number 2 number 1, and blah blah blah, and then you're number 5.
Yeah, I mean it's a similar concept of kind of just shifting the ownership, so you're not keeping a ledger of anything, and that's actually one of the key things that I think it can kind of bring to complement to the other cryptocurrencies, is that it has the ability for users using the currency to be anonymous from the bottom up. It's not working around the fact that blockchains are global ledgers, which everyone kind of is able to see, and that's their point, and that's a good thing. It provides transparency, but it also makes staying anonymous a little difficult unless you do a lot of things to kind of cover up.
So to sort of put my sort of spin on this of how I understand it, Bitcoin was virtual currency 1.0. NXT, a lot of people are saying, is virtual currency 2.0 because they did, in my opinion, a lot of improvements over some of the blockchain sort of stuff to where instead of proof of work, it was proof of stake. So anybody running the client can then do forging if they have a certain number of coins, and then they're proving that they have some stake in the game, not necessarily that they've got the fastest computer. So in my opinion, that's an improvement, and it seems as though SafeCoin and MaidSafe is going to be crypto 3.0.
I think it's definitely a possibility. You can kind of look at it like SafeCoin is going to could potentially be like a really great tool for staying anonymous in your transactions. However, you still want the ability to be transparent. So say organizations and charities that want to put all of their finances on a global ledger, that's great. And, for accountability, that's a really great thing to have. However, kind of on a personal use case, I think SafeCoin is going to be a really important tool in the whole cryptocurrency space for sure.
And people can go to MaidSafe.net, that's MaidSafe.net, to find out more. And do you have an estimated date of when this is going to wind up being rolled out?
So obviously it's brand new technology. However, we've been kind of estimating around the end of the year. So we're hoping for like in the last quarter of this year. It could potentially roll over to the first quarter of next year, but it definitely wouldn't be any longer than that.
So last quarter of this year, I'm doing math in my head. So anywhere from like the next 3 weeks to the end of the year is hopefully when this thing gets rolled out. Paige, thanks again for coming on the show. And again, listeners, you can find out more about MaidSafe, MaidSafe.net. I'm looking forward to it. I know a bunch of other people are as well. And I'll definitely let you know when it rolls out. Tune in again next week, FPPradio.com.